and Bakerloo lines still have no service between Wilson Junction and Harrow and Wealdstone. LBC Travel, I'm Katie Tyler.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, what a remarkable bank holiday Monday. 28 degrees centigrade in Northolt, West London, 27 in Northampton, in Suffolk, in Hampshire, in Doncaster, a little bit lower in Surrey, 26.5, same in Oxfordshire, Worcestershire, Wiltshire, 26.1 in Gravesend in Kent. Tens of millions of you enjoying a really absolutely stunning bank holiday. I saw a photograph of Southend Beach. I can't imagine how many tens of thousands of people were there. At the moment, the traffic apparently isn't too bad out there, which says to me that people are making the best of it and saying, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll come back a bit later today because it'll be quieter then. I suspect that won't be the case. The big event of the next few weeks, the big global event of the next few weeks, is going to be this amazing, dramatic meeting that'll take place between Kim Jong-un from North Korea and Donald Trump from the United States of America. They've agreed to meet at this demilitarized zone. I can sort of already see the image of the two men walking towards each other. It's going to be absolutely huge. But interestingly, just over a week ago, South Korea's foreign minister said, clearly credit goes to President Trump. And yet, the North Koreans have now said that actually that's not really quite the case, and that it's not because of Trump that these meetings are going to happen. So let's just have a sort of run through the timeline of this and the style of this. Let's hear how Trump initially approached Kim Jong-un, and he did it at a rally in Huntsville, Alabama.
When you look at what's going on in the world, you have so many where they don't respect their people. But we want nations that cooperate together to create better for all people. That's what we're all about, all people. And we can't have madmen out there shooting rockets all over the place. And by the way, Rocket Man should have been handled a long time ago. Little Rocket Man. We're going to do it because we really have no choice. And I want to tell you something, and I'm sure he's listening because he watches every word, and I guarantee you one thing, he's watching us like he never watched anybody before. That I can tell you. That I can tell you.
Well, extraordinary Trump stuff. This is when he brands him Little Rocket Man. So it's done with humour, but it's a confrontational style. Of that there's very little doubt. And he went on, and in August this year, he made it pretty clear, don't threaten us.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening, beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
Well, they were extraordinary words, weren't there? And Trump's opponents basically saying, this guy is crazy, this guy is deranged, this guy is going to lead the world to war, it's a disaster. And yet, within a couple of months of those things being said, and it has to be said, not just tough talking, but persuading the Chinese that actually the sanctions on North Korea needed to be a lot tougher. And within a couple of months, the whole game had changed. And suddenly, there was the prospect of a meeting, and these prospects have occurred before in recent decades, but the prospect of a meeting between these two men, and whilst Trump was calling him Little Rocket Man, he was calling Trump old and fat. So this sort of extraordinary war of words that went on, and that, of course, then led to the South Korean and North Korean leaders meeting, and to this statement that was made by South Korea's foreign minister.
Are you surprised by how quickly this moment has arrived? I mean, let's face it, just 4 months ago, Kim Jong-un was talking about pressing nuclear buttons from his desk, and President Trump was responding in kind.
I feel like somebody stepped on the accelerator at the beginning of the year, and it's been nonstop since then.
How do you account for it?
Clearly, credit goes to President Trump. He's been determined to come to grips with this from day one.
Well, that was Kang Kyung-wha, who is the foreign minister of South Korea, speaking to CNN's Christine Amanpour. So, very clear what the South Koreans think. The credit goes to Trump. North Korea saying that actually is misleading. But on this hot bank holiday, I want to ask you, does Trump deserve the credit over these peace talks? And if you think no, Kim Jong-un was heading towards denuclearization. Anyway, call me on 03456060973, or maybe you think, do you know what? Whether I like this Trump guy or not, even if I think his style is off the wall, you've got to take your hat off to him. He actually has got these people to the table. And if you think that, text to 84850. Or maybe you think there are other factors here too. Maybe the Chinese actually have played a very crucial role. But then if they have, doesn't Trump perhaps deserve some credit for talking them in to tougher sanctions? And if you think that's a reasonable point of view, then please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Watch us on Facebook, and of course, comment there too. My first caller on this subject is Kumar from Ealing. Do you think Donald Trump deserves some credit for this upcoming meeting?
Absolutely not. If you know anything about Korea and China relationship, you will know that Kim was summoned 1 month previously to the headmaster's office in Beijing and read the riot act by Xi Jinping. And the reason is because Trump had stumbled upon Xi Jinping's Achilles heel, which is the trade tariffs. Because, as you know, 10 years ago, Chinese economy, GDP was 10%, it's now down to 6.3. That's a collapse of 40% in 10 years. He cannot afford for a further stutter in the economic performance of China. The other thing I would say is if you know President Kim and accept that he's a tyrant, dictator, and an ego to boot, and that the America is considered as the devil, do you really think he's going to cower to President Trump? I really think that's...
well, he may not be cowering, Kumar. I mean, some people argue that by Trump agreeing to meet him, he's actually making the leader of a very small, poor little country. He's actually giving him a global status, so some view it the other way round.
May I respond?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you a very simple question. May I call you Nigel?
Of course.
Okay. I have a deep respect for you, even though I don't agree with your politics. Simple question. If you are dealing with a man like Trump who has reneged on the TPP, has reneged on...
No. He hasn't reneged on the TPP. Far from it. He fought... Now, hang on. This is important about Trump, whether you like him or not. He made a series of promises during the election, and he's done his utmost as president to keep those promises, and getting rid of TPP was one of those.
Okay, but the fact is his previous administrations are sided in the court, and these accords are typically, long-reaching and long-term. You can't simply pull out of an accord like that without upsetting a few, and then you leave a vacuum. Okay, let me just finish my statement, if I may.
Yeah.
It's a question, actually. Okay. If you are dealing with a man across the table, like Trump, who you know has let's say, reneged on the Iran JCPOA accord,
No. I'm sorry, Kumar. You really are missing the point on this. You know, one of the reasons we voted Brexit, one of the reasons America voted Trump, is we're sick to death of governments signing us up to international agreements and expecting successive governments to be bound by those agreements. That is not how the normal democratic process works. Trump has not reneged on anything. He made a series of promises, be it Paris, be it the Iran deal, whatever it is, and he's actually carrying that out, Kumar.
No, excuse me, I totally disagree with you. The whole point of agreements is that they have a long life shelf.
And that's why, Kumar, the revolution of 16 happened. That's why we voted Brexit. It's why we voted Trump. We've had enough of this international order where we get signed up to stuff that we as voters are told we can't change.
Finish my question, sir. My question is simple. But if you're Kim, why would you enter into an agreement with Trump in the knowledge that he may pull out at a later point in time?
Because you know Well, you know, and hey, this cuts both ways, doesn't it? I mean, any negotiation, any agreement, you know, either side could cheat, one doesn't know. But my guess, Kumar, is that Trump has shown real strength. He's shown some unpredictability, I would say, on foreign policy. People can't quite read him. I mean, the couple of strikes that he's done on Syria have surprised many, indeed, of his own supporters. So Kim, you know, is clearly thinking, gosh, is this guy going to try and take out all my missile sites? But the other real incentive for coming to an accommodation with America is that then China can ease the pressure of sanctions. And I don't know accurately any more than you do, but it seems that there are millions of people in North Korea who frankly haven't got enough food.
No question about that. I live at the end of my road is the North Korean embassy, and it's opposite the embassy is a tennis club. And I once met a Korean the person there who later was, I found to be deputy ambassador, and he defected. And he told me he wanted to know, because he found out I'm an investment banker, he wanted to know how the stock markets work. So one day I sat down with him and explained it. And in return, he told me some nuggets about North Korea. This is a closed society. They're totally brainwashed. They have been led to believe they don't have internet access. They don't have any media access to the outside world. They don't get visas. They're not allowed to travel. So they are basically what's known as Stockholm syndrome. They are active, and because they're suffering so greatly, they will do anything to please their dear leader. And if you know that makes you behave in a extraordinary fashion.
You may be right. I mean, that may well be true. But Kumar, I want to put this final point to you. President Obama, when it came to North Korea, when it came to them developing missile systems and weapon systems, chose to pretty much bury his head in the sand. When Trump came to power, he viewed North Korea as a genuine threat to world peace. Don't you think he deserves some credit for waking the world up to what the threat is and for actually moving things on?
May I respond?
Yeah.
Okay, I would accept your point about Obama. He did a lot of things, or didn't do a lot of things, which are regrettable. He said he closed down, for example, Guantanamo Bay. He didn't.
Absolutely.
He signed as well. So on that front, I would agree with you entirely. But my basic point is that since we're focusing now in the next few weeks after Korea, I think far more important is the Iran deal, because Iran is actually...
I haven't got time for that, Kumar. I'm focusing on North Korea at the moment. I will talk a bit about it at 7:30. Kumar, we're out of time. We've had a good chat. I'm never going to convince you. Rick on Facebook takes a different view and says, I believe it's quite clear that Kim lost his bottle when faced with Trump. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on this Bank Holiday Monday, and it's now 7:16.
This is LBC.
So, tell us your name and what you do.
My name's Clive and I'm a hermit crab. Clive's the name, moving home is the game.
And as a hermit crab, do you like finding new places to live?
Oh yeah, before Zoopla, it used to do my shelling.
And it's better now?
Oh, with Zoopla, finding a new place is easy. And they help manage your move too. From comparing mortgages to checking removals. They even help find broadband and telly packages. I never miss an episode of Celebrity Crab Island.
Well, that's certainly something to be proud of.
Find and move with Zoopla. Smarter about property.
It's in my hair, my eyebrows, it's even up my nose. They make painting look easy on the telly, but let me tell you, it's not. The wall looks like it's been finger painted by a giant child. Who's going to rescue this? Oh, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Actual professionals who know what they're doing and don't leave the place looking like, well, my face. Now I can concentrate on the important stuff. Whispering peach or dirty mayonnaise. Visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com. Winston Wolfe here. Now listen up. It's a beautiful morning. You wake up, look outside, and see your precious car gleaming in the sun. And then you see one nasty dent on the side. Some bozo's bad driving has ruined your pink paint job. You're furious. That's when you thank your lucky stars you're with Direct Line. Unlike with other insurers, you won't lose your no-claim discount when you claim it's not your fault.
Hit while parked. Your no-claim discount is safe. Can your motor insurance do that? With comprehensive cover as standard. Excesses apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Selling your business doesn't have to be as stressful as running it. Break free. Sell the Hilton Smythe way. Visit thehsway.co.uk.
Don't be taken for granted. Come get some big love at Big Motoring World. You'll love how big our choice is. Up to 2,000 beautiful used BMWs, Audis, Mercedes, and VWs. All ready and waiting just for you. Big Motoring World, minutes from the M25. See bigmotoringworld.co.uk. Now sing it. Big, big, big Motoring World.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
The South Koreans say Trump deserves great credit for what's happening. The North Koreans say, well, actually, it's misleading to say that Trump is the reason that peace talks are going to happen over the course of the next maybe 3 to 4 weeks. But before I get to that, just a thought about violence in London. Extra armed police are on the streets of London in an attempt to combat bank holiday weekend violence. 2 boys were shot in the head in Harrow yesterday. On Saturday, a teenager was shot dead in Southwark. At least one of those was a drive-by moped shooting. That's not to mention the other stabbings that have taken place over the course of this bank holiday weekend. Over 60 people have died so far in London this year, and on the last available figures we have, that is a 44% increase in homicides in London. Something very horrible is happening in London, but it's not just London. There's evidence of this happening in other British cities too. Back to Trump. I'm going to go to Montreal in Canada. Andrew, who's never called this show before. Good evening, Andrew.
Good evening for you. Good afternoon for me. First of all, a very fast, short statement. Congratulations to you on Brexit, and may Great Britain leave as fast as possible, because that's the only thing that will save you. Now,
well, I tell you what, Andrew, I'd love you to meet the Prime Minister and tell her that, because we've now been waiting 23 months, and I'm not quite sure what our customs union policy is, but that's for another day. Now, Andrew, you've called from a long way away. Something's motivated you. You know, I take the view, Andrew, that Trump had the guts to take this issue head on. He deserves credit.
I give him full credit. And by the way, it didn't start with the North Korean president. It actually started when he visited China with his family. And he made certain statements, and that gave the Chinese people, who are the backers of North Korea, 110%. It told China that, listen, we are a new sheriff, and we are the new sheriff, and this is the way I do business, you like it or not, and I have the power, and you better come to me and get the thing going. Because everything, Kim had no say on it. It was China who said to Kim, you better meet President Trump or you're finished. Because we won't support you.
Andrew, I'm absolutely with that, you know, and I have to say, I've got a message here on Facebook, Andrew, I'm going to share it with you. Stephen says, if I were Trump, I'd say no deal to Rocket Man in reply to his behaviour. It was clearly the pressure that the US put on China to starve North Korea that made him go for peace. That must have been a major factor here, mustn't it?
See, Mr. Farage, there's only one thing I'm going to tell you. Most of the average persons that are on your talk to the LBC and all the talk radios, they don't really realize what's happening. Trump is not a regular politician.
No, he's not.
He's a decision maker. And he will act, and this is what will make his saying says, make the United States great, and I hope he goes through it, and I hope he gets nominated for the second time.
Andrew, thank you very much indeed, and thanks for listening all the way from Montreal in Canada. Andrew, thank you. And, you know, he believes that Trump is basically a businessman. I get the same from Oliver in Salford, who says Nigel Trump is a businessman and knows how to make deals, unlike some useless politicians. Of course, he deserves to get credit, and Chris makes the point. He's absolutely right. The left won't acknowledge Trump's accomplishments because they can't accept he has succeeded where they failed. I'm not so sure they failed, Chris. I don't think they even tried, and that is the point. Let's go to Jay in Greenwich, another new caller to the show. Good evening, Jay.
How do you do? How are you doing, Nigel?
I'm doing well, and I have to say, it's unconventional. The language is nothing that we're used to, but I do think Trump deserves some credit here.
Well, I think, firstly, it's nice that Trump has his cheering section here in the UK. It's wonderful.
Well, there aren't many. I tell you what, Jay, there aren't many of us.
Well, it's interesting. You'd be surprised, Nigel. And firstly, I must say I'm very impressed with your story and what you've accomplished, although I'm very much against it. But you seem to be an upstanding guy. Coming back to your question regarding Trump. So does he deserve credit for what's going on now with North Korea? He might. I mean, I just don't think we know the answer to that. In terms of China putting pressure on North Korea thanks to the U.S., I don't think China's been putting the kind of pressure that most people are led to believe, in the sense that North Korea has been getting illicit supplies of oil and everything else it needs through the Chinese border. I think what's happened here is that Kim Jong-un, who's a very smart, shrewd, and ruthless operator, realizes that he's got a bit of a chump in the new president of the U.S. And I think he's just playing the reality show and going to ultimately come out a winner.
OK, so he's certainly been given a very big stage. Is he going to... I mean, I've got, very, very cynical Facebook message, Jay, I've got here from James, who says it's a classic North Korean tactic. Talk about peace, then ask for lots and lots of aid, and then start threatening war again. I mean, is that part of what Kim's thinking?
Well, it could be part of what Kim's thinking, in the sense that North Korea has done this on 2 different occasions. They've lied to UN weapons inspectors and, made certain concessions, and all this time they've been building their nuclear arsenal. I think what's happened is that now that North Korea can hit the continental U.S., now that they've got the ballistic missiles in place, they realize that they're in a very strong position, the kind of position they never were in before. So now is the time to talk. And now they're up against a president who, it's interesting to hear people talk about what a great negotiator he is. But, this is a guy who effectively went bankrupt 5 times, went very possibly, and I guess the truth will come out, but many people believe went possibly to the Russians to bail him out.
Oh, no. We're not, I mean, come on. I mean, really, let's not have the Russia conspiracy, not on this bank holiday. And particularly, Jay, now that we know that the Russians, of course, have spent far more time and effort on Corbyn than they ever did on Brexit and probably ever did on Trump. So I'm not having that. But look, you're quite right. He had a very checkered business career. Very often, the most successful people in life have a series of failures before they hit the big time. And I don't think you can hold that against him. But Jay, let me ask you something. Is there anything that Trump has done that you would applaud?
And I say this, I realize that we live in a world now in which there are tribes. There are democratic tribes and Republican tribes. And despite all of this, I don't see myself as being tribal. I mean, I look at the person for what they do and what they've accomplished. One thing is, I will say the guy's a fighter. There's absolutely no question about that, and I think that's incredibly impressive. I think he's a genius when it comes to self-promotion as well.
Oh, yeah.
I only wish he would use those skills.
All right. Well, Jay, you almost gave in there and said something nice about him. Listen, thank you very much indeed for your call. Call us again in the future, please. Don't sell the skin before you shoot the bear. No point giving Trump all the credit before he has done the peace deal with North Korea. Cheers, old boy, says James. Well, look, I tell you, the point is that actually there's already been a pretty constructive meeting between North and South Korea, a joint ice hockey team at the Winter Olympics. Even now, an announcement that North Korea has readjusted its time zone to match South Korea. So there are actually some very positive things happening here. And this American president, actually had the guts to go to China, went to Beijing, and he's now managed to broker this meeting. I think, please, surely, and Will was saying we mustn't be too tribal, but people are being very tribal about this. I'm not saying it's peace in our time. There are no pieces of paper, but the very fact talks are happening, there's going to be a meeting, must be good. Surely, William Wrexham, this must be good, mustn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you, Nigel, 100%.
And welcome to the show, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
but honestly, I think I do agree with what the person said. I think it was James before in the on the text, saying that we need to wait until the whole thing's over before we lay the blame on someone.
Yeah, talks could break down, or there could be a deal and we find the North Koreans have cheated, or there's all sorts of things that can go wrong here. But at least there is the prospect. You know, I mean, nobody can predict that it'll be like Reagan meeting Gorbachev. I mean, no one knows. But, Will, why do people find it so difficult, or a lot of people, to give Trump credit for anything?
Well, I think that's more to the point. It's past, really.
Yeah.
And it's quite suspicious with the whole thing with Russia. I don't believe any of it, but honestly, not many people do believe him.
So you think people view him as a bit of a shifty character, a bit dodgy, not trustworthy? Is that really the point?
Yeah, that's really the point, really.
OK, well, you may be right. There is scepticism out there about him, but I tell you what, it's never boring, though, Will, with him, is it?
No.
It's never boring. Thank you very much indeed, Will from Wrexham. You know, and he says, look, people have got reservations about Trump, bit of a dodgy background, an unusual style. I don't know. What does Mark in Chelsea think? Good evening, Mark.
Hi there, Nigel. No, I was just saying to your producer that you know, I gave him great respect, Donald Trump, or President Trump, because everyone keeps... Is he for not pointing missiles, and they're not pointing missiles at us, and... You know, it's got to be the best thing in the world. But there's another thing I'd love to say. Everyone in this country that's slagged off the President of the United States being Donald Trump, and as people said, he is a businessman. He knows what he's doing. He's not a stupid man, because you've met him, Nigel, many, many times.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I apologise for the likes of Sadiq Khan and Jeremy Corbyn, the way they've made him look like a leper. There's more people in the world that they should be discriminating against, but they don't, and we seem to open them up with open arms and have state visits for these people.
Oh, Mark, we've had state visits for former war criminals, we've had state visits for people from Middle Eastern states who've done all sorts of beastly things, but that's all fine and dandy, and Speaker Burko can turn up at these grand events, but when it comes to the leader of our closest ally, you know, the French, of course, marched in well ahead of us, Mark, didn't they?
But Nigel, who would you have running? Literally, the Americans are the police of the world. Who would you have running that? Would you have the Chinese? Would you have the Russians running it? Because at the end of the day, then, if the America pulled away, Britain pulled away, the world would be in chaos.
No, I think the relationship between us and America, both in military terms, although, of course, our military has diminished hugely in the last decade, but in military terms and in intelligence terms, it is an absolutely vital world relationship. It was vital a couple of times back in the 20th century, and who's to say it could be vital again at some point in the future. So, Mark, we give Trump credit, yeah?
100%.
Good man.
100%.
Good man. Thank you very much indeed. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on this Bank Holiday Monday. It's now 7:30 and time for the news with Tim Humphrey.
There's been another shooting in South London. The victim has received serious injuries in New Cross Gate. The bank holiday weekend has already seen shootings in Wealdstone, Lewisham and Southwark, where a 17-year-old died. Police have shot at a suspect in Oxford after gunshots were fired from a house. Part of the city centre is on lockdown after officers were called early this afternoon. Boris Johnson's been on TV in the US to appeal to Donald Trump not to scrap a deal with Iran designed to stop it making nuclear weapons. The Foreign Secretary's been on the President's favourite breakfast show in New York. LBC weather tonight will be fine and dry in many places, some rain moving into the west later, a low of 8 degrees.
LBC travel, a couple of slow patches on the M25, clockwise at junction 25 for Enfield after a lorry broke down, and also anti-clockwise at junction 16 for the M40. Long delays for the northbound M23 at junction 9 for Gatwick Airport. Traffic was halted just before 7 to clear an accident involving 4 cars. The Bakerloo line and London Overground have been suspended between Willesden Junction and Harrow and Wealdstone because of a signal failure at Stonebridge Park. LBC Travel, I'm Mark Percy.
This is LBC.
Andy's red-handed breakfast flatbreads.
I am never having a party again. I only invited a few mates over last night. Then before you know it, the whole house was full. It was all fine until Mum and Dad came back from holiday a day early. So I'm making up to them with my very own breakfast flatbreads. Smoky bacon, eggs and tomato under the grill, topped with fresh avocado, and extra chilli flakes for Dad.
Top your own flatbreads with Tesco crispy beach smoked back bacon. Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
Don't be taken for granted. Come get some big love at Big Motoring World. You'll love how big our choice is. Up to 2,000 beautiful used BMWs, Audis, Mercedes, and VWs. All ready and waiting just for you. Big Motoring World, minutes from the M25. See bigmotoringworld.co.uk. Now sing it. Big, big, big Motoring World.
It's in my hair, my eyebrows, it's even up my nose. They make painting look easy on the telly, but let me tell you, it's not. The wall looks like it's been finger painted by a giant child. Who's going to rescue this? Oh, relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Actual professionals who know what they're doing and don't leave the place looking like, well, my face. Now I can concentrate on the important stuff. Whispering peach or dirty mayonnaise. Visit trustatrader.com.
So tell us your name and what you do.
My name's Olivia. I'm a hermit crab, passionate about dance, and I'm a proud mum to 49 darling hermit crabs.
Wow, you must need a lot of room for the kids, not the dancing.
Oh, we've got a 4-bedroom house with an extension and garden.
Oh, where did you find it?
Zoopla. Me and the hubby used the running costs tool to see if we could afford the rent, energy bills and council tax.
Clever.
We've even got an idea of the water bills. Great for us crabs. Oh, is this live? Can I show you some of my dance moves?
Yeah, it's radio. No one's going to see you.
Oh.
Find and move with Zoopla. Smarter about property.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
Does Donald Trump deserve credit for the forthcoming peace talks? The South Koreans say he does. The North Koreans say, well, maybe that's a bit misleading, and I'm asking you how you feel about this. And of course, as with all things Trump, we get a huge range of emotions. Some of you think he's a hero, having pulled this off. Others of you don't like him. Don't believe anything he ever says. I don't think some of you, I don't think, could credit him ever with anything. Meanwhile, Boris Johnson, our Foreign Secretary, is in Washington, D.C. He's gone out to meet John Bolton, the new National Security Advisor. He's gone to meet Mike Pompeo, the relatively new Secretary of State, but he's not meeting President Trump. Why is he there? Well, he's there because of the Iran nuclear deal, something that the European Union believes in very strongly. So France, Britain and Germany have exactly the same policy on this. That's because we've kind of been doing this stuff at a European level now for a very, very long time. Trump wants to pull out of the deal. He says the deal is dumb. He says the deal gives Iran too much money, and he believes the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, who says that Iran are not keeping to the deal and are continuing to build their military capability. So Boris has gone to try and persuade the president to change his mind and to support the EU position on this. Boris, you could be there a very, very long time, in my opinion. Boris is not meeting the president, but he did go on Fox and Friends this morning, which is the president's favourite breakfast show, to make these arguments. But Boris has had some nice things to say about President Trump, echoing something that I brought to you on this show a few weeks ago. This was Boris Johnson speaking to Sky News.
If he can fix North Korea, and if he can fix the Iran nuclear deal, then I don't see why he's any less of a candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize than Barack Obama, who got it before he even did anything.
Well, Boris, that's quite right. And we made this point here just over 3 weeks ago, that Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize, not for what he did, for what they thought he might do, because he was nice. Really, really nice. And of course, in the end, he achieved, certainly in terms of foreign policy, pretty much zip. I'm not suggesting Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize yet, but if this meeting goes well, then I think he should. Not sure that'll happen. Well, one person who thinks he does deserve credit is Ian, who says to me on Twitter, I lived in South Korea for 3 years, and I've got friends there. They certainly are giving massive credit to Trump. They have become sick of liberal politicians making empty promises. Interesting point. John on Facebook. Oh dear, John says, Trump did nothing but threaten North Korea with his I've got a bigger nuclear button than you have, and discourage his Secretary of State from talking to the North Korean government. He lacks diplomacy, cannot construct a sentence in English, he lies, then forgets his own lies, and lies again, and insults people without even trying. No credit. John, it's a bank holiday. I mean, lighten up a little bit. But there we are. But, you know, John, there are quite a lot of people in this country who take John's view. They just cannot stomach Trump in any form whatsoever. Now, one of the interesting features tonight is virtually everybody that's calling has never called the show before. It must be different patterns of behaviour on a bank holiday. Perhaps the sun's got to them. I don't know. Alan is calling from Bromyard in Herefordshire. Good evening, Alan.
Good evening, Nigel.
And tell me, how warm was it today in Herefordshire?
Nice and warm.
Nice and warm.
Sun outside.
Just, brilliant. Now, Alan, you've never called before, so you must feel strongly on this.
I do indeed. I think a lot of what's being said is not very close to the truth. And I think I'd like to start by saying when we all know that the pen is mightier than the sword, but when the man armed with a pen meets the man armed with a sword, there's only one winner, the man with a sword. And one of the things Trump did was to remind Kim that his nuclear button was a lot bigger than his.
Yep.
And the idea that somehow we should be afraid of North Korea's nuclear capabilities as they exist at the moment is something to be concerned about. It's a load of rubbish. They're pathetic. I mean, they've never actually deployed a nuclear weapon in anger, whereas the Americans did that in 1945 twice. So, and they've developed weapons ever since. So Trump is speaking from a very much stronger position than Kim, and Kim knows it, and he's been reminded of the fact.
Do you think, Alan, that fire and fury speech, quite extraordinary words to hear, do you think Kim was just a little bit frightened of Trump?
I think he was. I think, and possibly with the help of the Chinese, explains him that he jolly well ought to be. Also, the other one to remember is the fact that the Americans dropped a bomb in Libya and had a go at Gaddafi. They missed him, didn't they? But
They did, and then and then they encouraged us to do Libya again, and we got rid of Gaddafi, and look what that led to, Alan.
Yes, but the point is that they have the capability. And the other thing to bear in mind in relation to North Korea and their so-called nuclear capabilities is that when Kim says, yes, let's get rid of nuclear weapons on the Korean peninsula, they will still have a very large number of non-nuclear weapons only a few miles away from Seoul, and they can drop a large amount of armaments on. And they've probably, in military terms, they've got a very strong army, lots of soldiers. So if there was no American presence in the Korean peninsula and there were no nuclear weapons, then Kim would be in a very strong position to reunite the whole of the Korean peninsula as North Korea.
Yeah, under that ghastly form of government that leads to poverty and misery, yeah.
Yeah, and people don't seem to be concerned or completely closing their mind to that possibility. And incidentally, that takes us back to China, because one of the things I think China have probably not been too helpful to what we might call the Western position is that they're obviously in competition with America. China wants to be top dog, and the more they can rub up America the wrong way with using North Korea to make life difficult, the better it is for them. But I think Trump's called their bluff on that one.
Oh, yeah, no, I do. So, Alan, a Nobel Peace Prize for Trump if this all comes off?
I think undoubtedly.
Yeah. Great man. Good stuff, Alan. Thank you very much indeed. Nigel, your love affair with Trump is bordering on hero worship. Please try and be a bit more objective, says M. Well, I tell you what, I've been very critical of some of the airstrikes that Trump has launched. I really have. And to the delight of some of the left-wing media and newspapers and radio and TV programmes. I also have to say, and I'm going to say it again, I think the sacking of James Comey was the biggest mistake that Donald Trump has made as president, because it has led to Mueller, it has led to this endless Russian nonsense. So I am quite prepared to be critical, but I have been a cheerleader for Trump in this country. And do you know something? Actually, to begin with, I was on my own. There was virtually no one else in elected politics in Britain had a good word to say for him. And but I'm quite used to being the underdog, really, aren't I? Nigel, if Trump hadn't said Brexit was a good thing, these people on the left would welcome him with open arms. Yvonne in Telford, I'm sorry, I'm not so sure they would. Kevin is calling from Huddersfield. Another new caller. Kevin, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. You okay?
I am very well indeed. But a gorgeous weekend. Gardening, bit of fishing on Saturday. It's all been pretty good, really. And I'm, I just still amazed at some of the real venom that even the mention of the name Donald Trump seems to bring out of some people.
It's I think there's a lot going on in the background that we don't know about. There really is. Okay.
Yep.
Well, you'd know that, wouldn't you? So, what is that the right word? Well, what annoys me, I won't swear.
No,
What
please
annoys
don't. There's lots of kids sitting in cars coming back from Southend and elsewhere right at the moment, so please don't, Kevin.
Yes, the poor things are stuck in traffic jams on the M5.
I bet there's a few out there, yeah.
It's the left-wing media who spin nothing but absolute garbage. Okay? The BBC, Sky, they're just all at it. All they do is focus on the negative and the rubbish. That's all they focus on, to try and turn people who have got their heads screwed on and their feet on the ground into thinking that Donald Trump is doing an awful lot of bad, coming up with all sorts of garbage. And it's just wrong. And, of course, then you get your armchair critics. Oh, he's not doing that. Oh, God, look what he said. And they don't stop and think about what's going on in the background. Kim Jong-un has been pushing, obviously, launching missiles, buttons for ages to get attention and to say, look at me, right? Now, he's been throwing his weight around. All of a sudden, it takes somebody who's got a pair and a backbone to stand up and say, now, hang on a minute, young man. Just you pack that in, or else there's going to be problems and you're going to get trodden on. Nobody else has said it except Donald Trump. And I think Donald Trump ought to be running our Brexit talks.
So do I, Kevin. Because, do you know what? I reckon if Trump was running our Brexit talks, it would have taken him less than 23 months to work out what our position was with the customs union, wouldn't it?
It would have taken him 23 minutes.
Yeah.
If that, you know?
Yeah. No, no. Kevin, thanks for your call, mate. Absolutely. Nigel, RE credit to Trump. It is a rooting, tooting, thumb-punching, big, fat yes from me, says Linda. A rare text from me. She says, how refreshing to hear folk backing a big mouth like Trump. Let's hope he can handle Putin next. Well, yeah, let's see about that. Putin swearing in today, 18 years now. Putin has held one of the two top jobs in Russia. If you want peace, you need to show your strength and power. Trump is the best president the country has produced since Ronnie Reagan, says Ian. So there's a bit of support coming in for Trump, but those that are against Trump are really against Trump. And what I get here from Jim in Catford is Trump could discover the cure for cancer, end world hunger, and create peace in our time. However, the left will always poo-poo anything he does. Jim, you're absolutely right. They always would, and they always will. And it was the same with Reagan, you know. The left hated Reagan because of his style, because of his radicalism, and even when he led America to unprecedented economic success and wealth creation, particularly for those at the lower end of society, they still could never, ever do anything than say that he was stupid, he was too old, he was no good. They never credited him with anything, and they never will either with Trump. Whatever happens in these talks with Kim Jong-un. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on this Bank Holiday Monday, and it's now 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Jeremy Hunt is being asked to save free healthcare for British people travelling to Europe. Should we retain a reciprocal deal for healthcare with the EU?
Clive Bull on LBC.
LBC with the Open University have been looking into adult learning and how everyone can learn while still earning, gain new qualifications, and can help bring life and social change.
I'm convinced that a lot of people can do things, but they just don't realise they can do it. But once you start doing it and you start to succeed, it just snowballs, and that then permeates into every part of your life.
To find out more about the Open University, go to lbc.co.uk.
So, tell us your name and what you do. My name's Clive and I'm a hermit crab. Clive's the name, moving home is the game.
And as a hermit crab, do you like finding new places to live?
Oh yeah, before Zoopla, it used to do my shelling.
And it's better now?
Oh, with Zoopla, finding a new place is easy. And they help manage your move too. From comparing mortgages to checking removals. They even help find broadband and telly packages. I never miss an episode of Celebrity Crab Island.
Well, that's certainly something to be proud of.
Find and move with Zoopla. Smarter about property.
What are the best things about working for yourself? Being the boss? Setting your own hours? Every day is bring your dog to work day? Bet you didn't say invoicing. Send customized invoices in a moment with QuickBooks. know when they've been seen, paid, or are overdue, so you can stay on top of your cash flow and get back to more enjoyable things. QuickBooks, backing you. Available now for up to 50% off your first 6 months. For terms and conditions, visit quickbooks.co.uk.
Want to progress more in your career or run your own business?
With a business degree at GSM London, you can follow your bold dreams to success.
Degrees are awarded by the University of Plymouth, and at GSM London, you can start a degree without formal qualifications on our foundation year.
So why wait till October? Start a degree this June.
Search Have Bold Dreams at GSM London now.
GSM London. Have bold dreams.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
And on this Bank Holiday Monday, I bet there were huge numbers of people in this country on the beach, out in dinghies, sailing, windsurfing, you name it. We're an island. You're never ever that far from the sea anywhere in the United Kingdom. And because of that, one of the charities that I really have supported over the course of the last 35 years or so is the RNLI. And I've got to know quite a lot of the people that work within it. And I've always had huge admiration for them. Nearly everybody that works for the RNLI does so in a voluntary capacity. They are not paid. They don't get salaries. You know, maybe the engineer who's there full-time gets a salary, but most of them, the vast majority of them, do not. And it's very, very sad to see what's happened in the last couple of weeks. 2 crew members in Whitby have been sacked. Why? Well, there were mugs on their desk that were thought to be inappropriate. They were Secret Santa presents. They were pictures of the guys' heads superimposed on naked women's bodies. I don't know whether they'd done anything else wrong, but apparently those items would have been offensive had school children been visiting the boatyard. And to add to that, just 4 more crew have voluntarily walked out, and this is not a good thing. But to add to that, in both Jersey and Scarborough, we've seen quite senior lifeboatmen sacked for unauthorised launches. In the case of Scarborough, the guy went out without other qualified crew. He went out to help somebody. He'd been with the RNLI 33 years. He was something of a legend up in Scarborough. He'd already got an MBE for his work. And I'll tell you what, if the RNLI chooses to become corporate, chooses to behave like a big, big company when it's dealing with volunteers, they'll be in danger of actually wrecking the 4th emergency service in this country, and one that acts on a voluntary basis. I hope the nonsense stops there. Back to Trump. The North Koreans saying it's misleading to say that it's Donald Trump that has led to the upcoming peace talks. The South Koreans giving him full credit for it. And I think, look, you've got to give him credit for it, but not everybody agrees. Anthony is calling from Staines. Good evening, Anthony.
Nigel.
Hi there.
Well, yes. Well, I think Trump indeed is the catalyst for huge change that's coming, not only in Korea, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves, but in China too. I think that this push to democracy and reunification of South and North Korea will be irresistible. It will move forward at quite a rapid pace. And I think we'll see this year great moves in Korea. Because let's not forget, we have the Games, and I think Kim can see that he can't keep his country in the Stone Age any longer.
Yeah, I wondered, Anthony, about that, because I had a caller earlier who said, look, you know, all the people that live in North Korea, you know, they've all got Stockholm Syndrome, they're all stuck part of the system, they all love the dear leader, but I wonder, Anthony, if they really are starving in their millions because of the threat of sanctions, maybe Kim sees actually the writing is on the wall for his administration in the medium to long term.
I think he does, because he's seen the way that Gaddafi went, he's seen the way that Saddam went, and he knows that's the way he's going to go, because this thing is a domino effect, isn't it? It just takes one domino,
okay,
and then the rest fall.
So you are really big-time optimistic about all this, aren't you?
Well, I am. I mean, we have to be slightly cautious, but I don't want to be sell this too much, but I do think we're going to see what happened in the Eastern Bloc is going to happen to the rest of the world that was left behind after that process. Let's not forget, we left people still under communism and still under, really, Marxism, and look where that's led everyone.
So this is part of a bigger global... Very interesting. And you don't honestly think that could extend to China, do you, in the short term?
Not the short term, but I think Korea will be the catalyst. because the Chinese people have been held back for so long, haven't they? Why can't people, determine their own future in the 21st century? For such enterprising people to live like this is just appalling, isn't it? In this century.
Yeah, I mean, these totalitarian regimes always lead to total disaster, don't they? That's very, very interesting, Anthony. You're thinking about this in a much bigger, wider way, and I just wonder, is Trump thinking this, or is Trump... I mean, he was elected on an America First policy, wasn't he? And at Davos, he kind of laid it out clearly that America First does not mean America alone. And yet, in some ways, he's travelled more and done more on the world stage than anybody could ever have imagined, hasn't he?
Yes, indeed. And, of course, Kim made that slight mistake of letting up all those rockets, didn't he? Which really didn't help his cause. Well, particularly the ones that, two of them, I think, that overflew Japanese territory. And that was really seen to be a very threatening act indeed, wasn't it? Yes, it was. I mean, we were talking not that long ago about World War III. And I think Kim can see the writings on the wall. Very, very interesting. So what does Kim do here, then? He sort of does a big deal, and he becomes a sort of global hero, does he? Rather maybe like a Gorbachev. He's someone who sees the writings on the wall for the administration, and it's time to modernise and move on. Well, I think so. I think there's got to be a clean slate, because they learned on the system anyways. Kim is a victim as much as anyone else, of an appalling system. And I think, rather than recriminations, we've got to see some, well, I won't say South Africa is a good example, but something like that we don't have those show trials, and that we have a peaceful future for Korea. Yeah, well, I hope that's right. I mean, clearly this event, when these two men meet, is going to be absolutely huge, and could lead to remarkable things. And yet, Anthony, when he comes to London on the 13th, well, he comes to the UK on the 13th of July. We don't yet know the exact itinerary, but I think it sounds like there is going to be a London visit. And yet we've got organisations like Amnesty International, people that campaign for peace and human rights, who were talking about taking part in a huge carnival of protest. Is it about time some of those people perhaps reconsidered their position? They should indeed take one long running jump, because this is a great opportunity for us too, for the trade, and I think there's something else that Trump will also move in on. Yeah, I mean, I had a debate with one of the leading figures in Amnesty, making a variety of accusations against Trump. And I made the point to her. I said, Obama kept Guantanamo Bay open, had a military surge in Afghanistan, continued to support the death penalty, and a whole range of things that Amnesty International say they're very, very against. And yet when Obama came to Britain, I didn't see any large-scale street protests. No, indeed. But I'll make one last point, and that is I think Trump will be a catalyst also for Northern Ireland to get this border dispute moving. Well, I wonder about that. Trump, of course, has friends on the Brexit side of the debate, but, of course, he also has met several times with Gerry Adams. So he does know some of the Irish nationalist camp as well. Now, he is due to be coming to Dublin. And I even heard rumours he could possibly consider maybe a visit to Belfast. Anthony, thank you for your call. Yeah, does Trump see himself as a peace broker over the Brexit, Northern Ireland versus Republic of Ireland process? I don't know. He may well do. But it's difficult to think of anybody who actually could have a meeting with Gerry Adams and also the leading Brexiteers as well. I don't know. Let's see where we go with that. Lots and lots of messages. Very possible there are many elements that may have caused Kim to fold. But the fact is, since Trump is in office, and because of his nature, all leaders of the world are dead scared of him. They're all pulling up their socks after years of delay because they do not want to get him irritated. So all credit to King Trump, says Norman. Trump, fab job. Keep off Twitter. Welcome to Britain, says Bob. Well, talking of Twitter, Boris will have noticed that Trump has just tweeted, and he is going to give his verdict, his answer, on the
on the Iran deal. He'll give it at 2 p.m. tomorrow US time, so 7 p.m. Our time here. So I'm guessing that'll be a live press conference, and I'm thinking, we're going to be on air, aren't we? So I think we're going to be going to the White House tomorrow live at that time. Boris has been making the case, not just on Fox and Friends, but he's been on all the big cable network TVs. You know, he's arguing that unless the Iran nuclear deal is kept in place, it could lead to nuclear proliferation. Israel are making the point, and one that has convinced America, certainly, and I'm reasonably convinced of it, that in fact Iran are not playing with a straight bat, they're not playing the game, and then they need to be called out on it. So Boris will be very much on tenterhooks, waiting for that to come up tomorrow. Bush, Clinton, Bush too, Obama got nowhere with North Korea because they appeased the bully. Trump stood up to the bully, and now things are moving. Trump is the real peacemaker, says Ian. Nigel, Boris just can't keep his nose out of it. He will only make matters worse, says Mick. Well, Mick, you know, the truth of it is, Boris actually has been very praiseworthy of the president over what he's done on North Korea, but he wants America to take a completely different foreign policy position. And I, you know, knowing John Bolton and the way he feels about this stuff, I do not believe for one moment you're going to see the president moving in Boris Johnson and the EU's direction tomorrow. We'll see. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow night at 7 for that press conference. Enjoy the rest of the evening while you listen to Clive Bull, who's up next.
Nigel, thank you. Coming up at 9, it's the Consumer Hour and your questions to consumer lawyer Dean Dunham. Also later on, 5 people, including 3 teenagers, have been shot in London in just the past 24 hours. We'll take a look at the rise of guns on city streets. Also, which is the least popular train station in the UK? We'll find out later and talk about how facilities need to be improved. And first, Jeremy Hunt is being asked to save free healthcare for British people travelling to Europe. So should we retain a reciprocal deal for healthcare with the EU? 0345 6060 973.
On your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.